Hello and welcome. I am Kim Keen, host of the One of a Kind You podcast. I started this podcast to share my journey of my past self, a woman who was struggling with leaving her teaching career and adjusting to stay-at-home mom life, to help other women with their motherhood journey or their work-life balance journey so they can let go and make themselves a priority without all the sacrificing. So the way that this podcast typically works is that I share a journal entry of mine from about 5 or 6 years ago and reflect on what I know now. And actually, that's not even true. It was 5 or 6 years ago when I originally started the podcast. It's almost 7 or 8 years now. And so I reflect on what I know now and what I wish I knew then in the thick of the struggle. And so if you are new here, thank you so much for tuning in and stopping by to see what it's all about. And if you're a regular listener, thank you for stopping by and taking time to listen to another episode. Everyone is so greatly appreciated for their time. And so this evening we are in for a special treat. We have a guest with us, so you don't have to listen to me blab away by myself. Her name is Sandy Stream, and she is an author and an activist. And she works on the belief that everyone deserves and is capable of finding peace and a warrior-like strength within themselves. And I love that because that's so powerful. And she taught law for 20 years, which is incredible. And she's raising her two children and facing a life full of adversities and lessons. She's decided to turn her efforts towards facilitating workshops for young and experienced adults to encourage them to live in peace and power. And I feel like that's so important too, because young adults don't always have the resources or places to get the information that they need. So without further ado, Sandy, take it away and fill us in on anything that I might have missed.
Thanks, Kim. I really appreciate you having me here. This topic is very dear for me. I feel so strongly about it that I keep putting myself in front of podcasting situations, which are not necessarily easy to do, but I feel so strongly about how important it is for human beings to have at least some guidance. And I'm not saying I'm the perfect guide or anything, but I certainly have some experience to just know that there is a way to live your life feeling okay, basically. So most people, yeah, they walk around not feeling okay most of the time. And it is possible to feel okay. It's, many pieces of the puzzle to figure that out, but it is something that is possible. It does take courage, but it also takes just, somebody guiding you. So I've had, so many people enter into my life, giving me little snippets of here and there during difficult times. And I think my skill was just, my brain was able to just put many pieces together. So, everyone has maybe different skills. And I think I was just able to put that puzzle together into a book that's organized for me, right? So it was like my manual of like, okay, how can I live and feel okay no matter what's going on, no matter what anybody's doing, no matter what's anything, to feel soft and to feel strong at the same time. And so I went and wrote out this book, which was basically just my sanity notes.
And I have it right here, and I started reading it, and it's funny that you use the word manual, because that's exactly, as I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of like a manual. I like it.
Facilitating circles. So at local yoga studios, we meet once a week, and it's absolutely remarkable what happens in those circles. Usually it's about maybe 15 people that we meet in person, and I'm starting them online as well. And we sit together and discuss all these topics that are in the book, but we do so with respect and with healthy listening, which I think most people are deprived of in their life. Like they don't have an environment that is healthy, of listening to each other. And so it's amazing what happens when people feel like they're in a space where people are respectful, like the wisdom that comes out of each person. It's not like I'm the superhero. Every person has a lot of wisdom. And this sharing and encouraging environment is just, it's a wonderful thing to get to do every single week. So
It
it
sounds
is
amazing.
possible. Yeah, it is possible for
Yeah.
human beings to sit together of all different ages, races, experiences, suffering levels, and everything, and talk and listen and respect each other. It is absolutely possible.
Yeah, and
I witness it every week. Yeah.
it's so needed, I think. And so
Mhm.
full transparency, I just had some technical difficulties.
Sure. No
My
worries.
Zoom froze. I was like, no. And
Okay.
so that is the struggle of living in a 300-year-old farmhouse with stone walls everywhere I turn. I have pods and everything. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
don't fail me now, Zoom. So I was worried it was going to disconnect me and then reconnect me. So it didn't,
We're still
thankfully.
connected. Okay.
So I think I might have missed the snippet of what you
Oh,
said, and I
okay.
don't know if the listeners did too. But I said to you before I froze, and I don't know if you heard me, was that your description of manual is perfect, because as I was reading this, I was like, yes, this is like a life manual. I really love it, and so that was the exact word that popped into my head, was manual. And I think it's lovely that you took your life manual and put it into print for others. And I think too, it's really great because I think young adults, middle-aged adults, older adults, it's applicable, it's reachable for all of them in the way that you've put the words to the paper and expressed all of the things that you feel are important for people to get into that courage circle. Or, well, I guess get in, get out, but like tap into courage and, really like dare to live life fully. And also, Sandy, I had to tell you that you at the beginning said you might not be the perfect guide, but I think you're the perfect guide for the people who need you. Like,
Oh,
you're the
that's very
perfect guide for
kind.
the people who resonate with your energy, which is just a very calm, just I don't know you well, but just the very first impression, like your energy is very calming. So I think that you are the perfect guide for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't experience others with that calming, grounding energy, because, like you said, they don't have a place of support to go to with other people, and especially in an environment where there are so many people with so many diversities
Yeah.
coming together in one space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of us don't have people in our life who actually listen. So we have something else. We have what we think is listening, but it's not listening. So if you tell somebody something and they're like just dismissing it like it's not important, or okay, you'll get over it, or just calm down, or it'll be fine, that is not listening. That's dismissive of your reality, right? And that actually messes us up a little bit on a constant basis because it's not reflecting the truth
Mhm.
of what we're feeling, right? So that's not listening. And then, the second type of listening that we encounter a lot, which is also, in my view, not healthy, is, when people are constantly trying to give advice very fast to each other, or control each other, or fix each other, right? So if you say something that's bothering you and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you need to do, just go do this and blah, 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 and whatever
Mhm.
else, right? So I'm giving you the message that something's wrong with you, right? I need to fix this situation. I can't handle the fact that you're upset, or I don't trust your own, process to take the time you need to process this and see what you need to do and trust you in it, right? So we don't have that kind of listening. So we're constantly bombarded with like messages, like maybe subtle, but messages of like, okay, something's wrong with what I feel, something's wrong with what I'm doing, something's wrong with what I do. Okay, I should do this, I should do this, I should. That's just the messages we're getting
Mhm.
all the time. So it's very hard and very rare for someone to just say, well, you feel that, really? Okay, I understand. And that's it. No, like, trying to change you and fix you and, alter your experience, and not allow you to just experience it and let it, it'll pass, or
Mhm.
you'll figure it out slowly, or, and when you offer that kind of listening, which is the first thing we do in the circle, I'll demonstrate. Literally, we'll do like, I'll say, okay, someone say something, I'm going to show you what's listening, what's not listening. And once you demonstrate the real type of listening, people just open up. Like they just open and they share things, and they, because and that's what's normal. I mean, I think that's normal. And what's really happening in our world is not really healthy. And so
Yeah, they probably are
once people,
feel seen for the
yeah.
first time in maybe forever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird, right? To walk around life, you experience, like, well, let's say you experience something. Let's say you're a kid and you're like, oh, I feel this. And everyone around you tells you you shouldn't feel that, number one. So they're like, really? Oh, I'm not supposed to feel that. Imagine like how much insecurity that creates inside of like, I'm not even supposed to feel this. Something's wrong. Like, it's just a constant thing we have. So no wonder most people, seem to, from what I'm seeing, walk around with feelings of like, oh my God, something's wrong with me. Like
Hmm.
people walk around with that feeling on a constant basis, because of this. So what it takes is, first to realize this is happening, right? And then it takes an enormous, trust in yourself to start, putting boundaries on that behavior, which might be completely rampant all around you. Like it might be all your relationships that are not necessarily good. So that's a tough one to do slowly but surely.
Hmm.
And then to trust your own system, to trust your own body, your own feelings, that's super hard if
Yeah.
nobody's ever trusted you before.
Hmm. Yes, because if
So,
no one trusted you, then you don't know to trust yourself. So
yeah,
it's
you
this
don't know that you have this
cycle.
inner guidance system. You
Hmm.
don't realize, like, no, my body says, no, no, this is what's right for me, or this is what I feel I should do. And nobody said, oh, yeah, okay, good luck. you
Yeah.
know, I hope, I'm here for you or whatever. And so I was like, really? You think so? Was constantly putting, anyway. So once you start to realize all these things, and this is just, a few pieces of the puzzle, there's a lot more, pieces. Also realizing your own controlling behavior and your own criticism and, all kinds of things, then you can start to see like your world in a little bit of a different lens, and you're not trying to control other people's things, and you certainly don't tolerate other people trying to tell you what to feel, or how to make your choices and things like that. So it becomes a bit different.
Yeah. And it's at first probably feels very strange because it's not the way that people are used to operating on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, yeah, it's scary because you're kind of alone a little bit, right?
Hmm.
You're alone in this way, but then I think at least for me, like the world around you, it gets a bit contagious. This way of living gets a bit contagious, and that, other people think like, oh, okay, well, I mean, she trusts her feelings, so maybe I will too. Or she knows how to say no, or she knows how to be kind to herself when she makes mistakes, or so maybe it rubs off, maybe it doesn't. It's not really, I just do my thing. But
Think it does because I think people watch each other more than we realize.
mm,
Um, Not sometimes in a comparisonitis kind of way, but I think there's just this natural curiosity
mm,
about others because we are looking for, not necessarily validation, but like evidence to say, like, oh, okay, yeah, we're on the right path. We got this thing called life. We know what we're doing. Or there are those times where we're like, oh gosh, I'm really not sure, but I see that person, it seems like they've got it together. So let me just sit back and watch and see what they do. Um,
mm,
and sort of, use those little snippets of information that they gather to then try and help them move forward. And I think the
yeah.
sweet and kindly one is so important, especially for women. Like I shared at the beginning, before we hit record, I was at a networking group today, and part of the networking group, we go around and celebrate something about ourselves. It can be personally or professionally, because most of the women
Mm,
in the networking group are entrepreneurs. And one gal shared that she was celebrating herself because she did not get overwhelmed when she missed the exit to get off of the interstate to get to the town where the lunch venue was. And she said, I just thought, oh, whoops, that's okay. I know where to turn around, and turned around, got herself reoriented, and she was just a couple minutes late. But she made it and she was okay. And she said, because usually I tell myself how stupid I am when I make mistakes like that. And I was like, oh, don't say that. That's not nice. But I think we just get into this habit of thinking that every time we make a mistake, whether it's big or small, it's something stupid. Oh, that's so stupid that I did that. Um, instead of actually celebrating the mistake that we made as like, oh, maybe there's a lesson here. Maybe I should not be on autopilot, or maybe I should turn the radio down as I get closer to my destination, or whatever the case may be. But being able to speak more kindly to ourselves. And so I think that's a super important aspect, because women, we often don't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, men too. There's surprising amount of number of men that also attend the circle. The speaking, I mean, if you're not kind to yourself, like, the question is, why not?
Hmm.
Why aren't you? And where did that come from? And who taught you not to be kind to yourself? Who thought that that's not the right way to treat you? Right. So that's probably a deep thing to look into. And then, like, in terms of mistakes, a lot of times where people are ranking, there's some kind of weird ranking system in the world. I don't know if you know this, like, you get ranked if you have a certain career, you have a certain
Oh,
height, you have a certain, like, there's
oh,
some kind of points, like, people compare each other. This one does this one does that, this one,
yeah.
so
I don't
there's
think I
some.
want to know what my rank is.
No, yeah, well, it's a strange thing though, like, to have this thing in the world. Like, how are we ranking people? Like, if you're tall, like, what if you were depressed and you managed to get up and take a shower today? Like, do we get points for that? Like, how does that work really,
Right?
right?
If you don't get points for that, you
Yeah,
100% should, though, because that's a
right.
big thing. If you're in the
Yes,
midst of like a depressive state,
absolutely. Yeah.
that's huge. You should get
Yeah.
points for that.
So these point systems really, they don't make sense, and we live as if they're true, and they're not really true. And instead, if we can just see, our inner goodness, just a pure goodness, regardless of mistakes or not mistakes, if we start to feel that, even if others have not seen this, we can learn to see that in ourselves. And then once you see that and you, like, deeply understand yourself, like, deeply, like, oh, I understand why I did that, because I didn't know about this, or I was overwhelmed, or, like, I understand, when you deeply see that, you don't have trouble seeing mistakes, because they're not you. Your you is just, you're just a person who's good or kind or whatever you are. Then there's behavior. So you can actually see more mistakes and more behaviors, because they're not defining you anymore or changing your points or value or anything else, because you're fine inside. So the more you get to know yourself and understand, why you do things, and realize you're inside, you can actually see more mistakes. You've separated yourself from your behaviors. And then you can also do that for others. Like, I really don't like your behavior, but not to, attack the person personally or deeply. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But you can be very, very strict on behaviors though. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, we can have very strong boundaries though. And it's not unkind to set strict boundaries. That's actually kind to
Yes.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think kind to the other person, because it lets them know what your standards are, so that
Yeah.
um they're not confused. Because I think oftentimes when boundaries aren't clear,
Yeah.
it creates unhealthy or unrealistic expectations. And so then that person also feels some kind of way, in a not good way, because they don't understand. They're like, well, I'm doing this for you. I don't understand what the problem is, or, something like that. And you're like, well, I didn't really want you to do that for me, because it's violating my boundaries. But if your boundaries weren't clear, it's just
Mhm.
sets up a whole dynamic for
Yeah.
unhappiness and resentment and anger and confusion and frustration and all of these things. And so by setting those boundaries for yourself, you actually are not only being kind to yourself, but you're being kind to the other person, because then they won't feel frustration. I mean, they might still frustration because you have a boundary in place, and before you didn't. So, but it might
Well,
be a different frustration, and it'll be maybe more appreciative, rather than more of like an irritation. So I think it's actually kind to have boundaries for both people,
yeah, sure. I
for
mean,
all.
boundaries are, yeah, I mean, they work because the more you do them, I mean, boundaries are just what's okay with you, what's not okay with you, right?
Mhm.
Like, it could be anything. They could change anytime. They could be, temporary, but maybe you have a headache. So your boundary might just be, I can't talk tonight, or I can't go somewhere because I have a headache. That's a
Mhm.
boundary,
Yeah.
right? So it could be anything. It just doesn't feel, so you're not really doing anything to the other person. It's
Mhm.
more about doing something that you need to do for you,
Mhm.
because it's not okay with for you. And yes, absolutely, people get frustrated and upset whether you set them or not set them, right?
Yes.
But then, I guess at the end of the day, that's your choice if you want to, be kind to yourself and take care of yourself or not, right? And setting
Yeah.
boundaries is the way to take care of yourself. And it's not selfish, taking care of yourself is not selfish. That's another thing we've been mistaught, I think.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
actually your responsibility.
Yeah. So that you can continue to thrive and show up on a day-to-day basis and really make the most out of this thing called life, because at the end of the day we kind of only going to get one shot at it. So
True.
um so it allows you to show up like that and the way that you want, and to be able to figure out what you do and don't want. And I think there are so many aspects of courage that we just talked about: courage to set boundaries, courage to change your boundary when you realize that what you initially set for yourself isn't working anymore. Because I think
Mm,
people get stuck with like, oh, I set this boundary and that's it, that's my boundary, I can't change it, even though I'm changing and evolving as a person.
mm,
Because it's like we're told that boundaries are selfish anyways, and taking care of yourself is selfish. And so there's like all of these underlying stories, but really at the end of the day, it's helpful, it's good, it allows you to be the best version of you, so you can make the impact that you're here on this planet to make, whether it's a personal impact, a community impact, a family impact, whatever it might be. So all the way around there's courage, and I love it.
yeah, it takes a lot of courage to, as your podcast is called, just to be the one of a kind, like to be yourself. It takes a huge amount of courage to be
Hmm.
yourself, right? People might not agree with it, like it, you know, and you might choose it anyway. So
Yeah.
it does take a lot of courage.
Yes. And I think there's, maybe some fear there
Mm.
choosing that, because you face criticism and
Yep.
judgment and all of those things. And so I think that in itself holds people back. And so um, how do you help people in your circle take ownership of that and stand up for themselves, so that way if there's someone who isn't understanding their choice or their belief or their thought or wherever it may be, they can say, that's great, I understand that we don't see eye to eye, but this is it.
Yeah. It's no easy feat for sure, but I think a lot of the things we've discussed at the circle is how to learn to get a lot of things from your inside and not always look outside for solutions and for things, whether it's for validation or for this or for many things, for love, even, right? How
Hmm.
much we can get from inside. And so, with that one, in terms of, acceptance and rejection from others and criticism and all that, I'm trying to think like one, we've had so many discussions, but one example would be I might say, like, okay, you three, like I'll name three people, okay, John, Mary, and Suzanne, you three are going to get to decide now if I'm a good person or not. You decide. Like, why
Oh,
would I
there's
do
pressure
that?
there. I'm like, I don't want to make that choice.
And, but, and also, why would I let them decide that?
Yeah.
Like, why would I give that? You decide if I'm doing the right thing, or you decide that one, you decide this for me. Like, so to realize, why give that to another person?
Hmm.
Why not take it back? And
Hmm.
you decide, and you decide your conscience, what feels right to do and not do. What choices make sense or don't make sense for you. And if others have different opinions, that's fine.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know.
I think, and so I'm not like a huge social media person. I'm on it,
Mm,
but I don't, if I don't have to be, I don't.
yeah.
But I think we get so caught up in like that external of giving away and like allowing people
Mm,
to determine
mm,
whether we're good or whatever.
anything. Yeah.
Because
Mm,
we put our whole life on social media and we wait for someone to like it or comment it or share
right.
it or save it. And
Yeah.
so then when you don't get that validation, like I just put on there that today's my kid's high school graduation and I only got 2 comments. That must mean that there's something wrong. And so I think that we're almost conditioned to look outside of ourselves for other
Yes.
people to say, like, yes, that's right, good job, wear that, no, don't wear that, say that, no,
Mm,
don't say that, think that, nope, not this time, don't think that anymore, time to think this instead.
that's
And it can
right.
be so confusing and overwhelming
Right.
when we actually, so trying to come back into yourself can
Mm,
be a scary thing in and of itself, because you're like, oh my gosh, never done this before, it's been a really long time since I've done this.
exactly. Absolutely. Or maybe never
Yeah.
have I, looked inside and trusted. And, one of the big ones is that, it starts for me with the demonization of emotions. So our emotions have been demonized for like 5,000 years or
Mm-hmm.
something, as if there's something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if instead of seeing our feelings as, guiding us or something natural, healthy, or like, oh no, I shouldn't feel,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean you shouldn't feel? You're feeling it. So we can't have the shouldn't next to reality. The reality is occurring. So it doesn't even make sense. But I shouldn't feel sad, but you feel sad. So instead of I shouldn't, why not see, okay, why am I sad? Let me see what it's telling me and guiding me towards. Maybe I'm lonely. Maybe I need to connect differently. Maybe I need a better friend. Maybe whatever, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your sadness can guide you if you would listen instead of put it aside or avoid it or things like that. And our anger is equally healthy and normal. If we're not using it to control people, that's a different type maybe. But
Mm-hmm.
if we're just angry because, somebody crossed our boundary or something, so we would listen to our anger instead of saying, okay, I shouldn't be angry. They were nice to me last week, or
Mm-hmm.
they're trying their best, or that's
Mm-hmm.
that's minimizing it, right? That's the
Yeah.
non-listening that I was describing earlier, but to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being dismissive. And so if we would listen to say, why am I? Okay, there must be reason, looking and see, okay, well, because I've told them several times and I feel my boundary is broken or whatever. And so if we respect that feeling, and I'm not saying we lash out, so feeling and aggressive is two different words, but feeling is perfectly normal and healthy to feel all your anger. There's nothing wrong with it. And then to see what you want to do, right? Because you're not okay with the situation. So then you can make choices. Okay, maybe I need to talk to them again. Maybe I want to get a therapist. Maybe this, maybe that. We can make choices because we've listened
Mm-hmm.
instead of, dismissing it or pretending it's not there or avoiding. Or so for me, one of the first biggest steps was to stop demonizing my own body, my own emotions, and to start reconnecting with that and respecting the wisdom that it must have, our inner, like an inner compass, right?
Yes. And
And
there's that's so powerful because too, I think when we do demonize them and we dismiss them or we
yeah,
um minimize them or stuff them
mm,
down or whatever it
yeah,
is that we're doing that's not allowing us to get that wisdom from them, then I
yeah,
think that puts us in a reactive state, and so
yeah,
then we are lashing out maybe at others or ourselves. We're saying unkind things to others and ourselves, but I think when
yeah,
we actually tap into it and say, what about this is making me angry, or why
yeah,
am I feeling sad, I think it gives us that space to process so then we can
mm,
choose how we move forward.
yeah, exactly. And if you weren't taught that as a child, and most people aren't, it seems to me at least, and not as adults either, they're like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, don't be sad, or let's just go ahead and have a drink, or let's
Yeah.
whatever. And so we're not used to that process. We're just not used to it. So that was a big step for me to start to really know myself deeply and to start feeling myself. And then once you start feeling yourself instead of just like thinking all the time, you start to feel. It's a whole different life experience to feel yourself. Now
Hmm.
you start feeling the environment, you feel music, you feel, you start to be in the feeling world, not just in the thinking world. Thinking is sometimes a way to avoid
Hmm.
feeling, because feeling is painful.
Yes, it can be.
Yes.
But the flip side of that is that then we don't allow ourselves to feel the joy either.
Yeah, it passes. You got to
Yeah.
go towards the pain and then, process that and deal with it and face it and then come out on the other side. Otherwise, we live in like almost an avoidant, completely avoiding reality, kind of,
Hmm.
avoiding our own physical reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a defense mechanism,
Mm.
especially
Yeah.
when life feels hard and it feels painful and challenging and
Yeah.
like not like there's nothing that's ever going to give. It's always going to be this way. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why a lot of people just live in that default state of like, oh, I'm not feeling anything because there's that fear of like, oh gosh, if I start feeling things, am I going to
It's going
no
to be
longer be able to
hard.
stand up for myself? am I gonna, get taken advantage of? Once I feel, am I never gonna stop feeling? Like, is it just gonna consume me?
Yeah, yeah. And, we do sometimes need support. So, like, when you are delving into these things, it's hard to find a good support system,
Hmm.
not just a support system, but like a few people who can actually listen to your pain and not try to fix you, as I said, not have that fixing energy. Even therapists and many others will have that energy as well. So to have really an energy of allowing you to process your things and it's hard to find that, but the more people learn to do it to themselves, we don't, whatever we do on the outside, we're doing on the inside. So
Hmm.
whatever we can learn, like, towards ourselves, I think eventually translate to, how we behave with others. First the relationship with yourself, and then the relationship with others will come, I think more naturally.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's like the pay it forward.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that movie.
Uh-huh. So, because if you are showing up for yourself, then you're gonna feel better,
Yeah.
and you're just going to be in a better state of mind, a better energetic space, all of those things. And then that slowly ebbs out to others because people feel that too. Then they want to come to you because you're like, oh gosh, she feels so light and airy or so calm and relaxed. Like, I need to know how's she feeling that? How has she gotten to that place? And then they'll come to you and not necessarily for you to fix, but just for you to be a model for them.
Yeah, just it's nice to hang around people that are not, that are comfortable with whatever is going on for you. Like they
Hmm.
can handle seeing pain or sadness, or they can just handle different experiences and they're not trying to change you or fix you, or,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
nice to have, I am lucky I have two friends too that are very close now that I can say can, I can actually go and not have that response. Not only, yes, I can share whatever I want, but also not have someone tell me, oh, but why don't you do that? Why?
Hmm.
All that comes, which just creates more second guessing of yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it creates, right?
Yes. And more disconnection because then
Yeah.
you feel more disconnected from yourself, but you also feel more disconnected to the people around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We do connect by both parties or more, whatever, being honest, open, non controlling, and proper listening, then we actually feel connected as human beings. The other way, we don't. It's like a weird superficial connection, but not deeply connected.
Mhm.
And that's why people are really lonely.
Yes.
They're not connecting in that way where it's emotional and respectful and deeper. And that's what I do believe human beings absolutely need,
Oh,
from
without a
each
doubt.
other. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how we thrive. That's
Yeah,
how we
for
get out of
sure.
survival mode. And
Yeah.
that's how we thrive.
Yeah.
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 So, so before we wrap up, if there is,
Okay.
just I'll put the link for the book in the show notes. But if there is, and I feel like the other thing I'm going to say is like I'm reading this book from cover to cover, like in order. But I feel like after that, then I can just pick it up and be like, oh, I need to um, learn how to get out of my comfort zone. So let me go to that page, and so I can learn how to get uncomfortable. And so I feel like this is a really great, just like almost like, yes, here's the quick abridged version of what you need, but it gives you enough to actually get you moving forward. Was that your intention when you wrote it?
It was literally papers scattered around the floor all the time. And each
Oh,
time I
really?
was listening to so many talks, I was meditating a ton.
Uh-huh.
And it would be as if I was like, like doing a Wikipedia in my head, like, oh, okay, I just heard something on the people pleasing topic. And I would like add it on that paper. And it was just like I was trying to organize the different topics that were helping. And then in the end, I mean, what you're seeing, like I said, it's like just my notes for myself
Hmm.
to figure this out. Like, okay, oh, I just heard a great talk, oh, that's true about this, or, and some of it came from just my inner experience, and some
Yeah.
of it came from listening to others, or who knows, it came from all over the place. And so I didn't really intend anything
Oh,
other than to take care of myself.
uh-huh. I love it.
Yeah.
So, now I did not prep you for this. Is there, and you can say no, is there a chapter, that is your most like revered? Like when you were writing your book, you're like, yes, this chapter is my chapter.
Every single one of those chapters was a complete personal revolution. I guess that's
Hmm.
a way to call this. Each
Yeah.
one is a revolution from inside. Like you're just switching. But there is one illustration that I really love. It's near the end.
Okay.
It's near, when once you have gone through all this and you start to feel well enough. There's one about, I think that the heading is about being wild and free. And there's a picture that the illustrator and I worked on to make, and it's just flowers that are in dancing
Yeah.
positions. This one, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. I just love that feeling that we can walk around in the world feeling free.
Yeah.
It's a strange experience for many people. In fact, in the circle, just before yesterday, it was a special event, and I told them today we're actually going to try to move. Usually we sit and discuss, but this time we're going to try to actually move freely. And I gave them like some prompts with music, and most people feel very rigid, and they're still worried to move. It reflects what's going on also inside,
Hmm.
and so for me, it's a wonderful thing to attain a level, not attain like we're all competing or performing, but to be able to live and feel free, just, like I can walk and move my arms to music. Yes,
Yes.
I'm allowed to do that. I don't
Yeah.
need anybody's permission.
It's funny because I think if I were in that circle and you said that, I'm like,
Yes,
what do
most
you want
people
me to do, Sandy? You didn't, Sandy, next time you got to give me notice.
well, it's a trusting environment, and I did. Everyone signed up. They knew I write like the description at the meetup, what we're going to do next one. They knew all the others are discussing this one. We were moving, but nobody had to do anything.
Yeah.
It's suggestions and whatever. There, it's
Yeah.
exploring yourself, what you're feeling, and nothing wrong. One of the women was saying like she's totally not ready to do one of the things I
Uh-huh.
suggested, because I was increasing discomfort basically, and one of the higher level discomfort was that you'd have to like go in the middle of the circle and do a move, so
Mm.
that's pretty high
Yes.
for most people. And she said she's not ready, whatever. And what I really wanted to share after, because we were, just sharing also at the end of each person's experience, is that she's not to be judged like she didn't attain a
Hmm.
whatever. We don't know her whole life. Like what she has been through is her experience. And so if she's not ready to do that now, she's not ready to do that now. That's it. It's
Yes.
not, it's not a, it's not like she's less than or didn't, I mean, we didn't live her life,
Yeah.
you
And it's
know.
not the end all be all because then she could be next week. She could be the one who's leading that movement
Who
circle,
knows?
starting in the
Yeah,
center.
yeah.
Just
Who
hopefully she
knows?
doesn't beat herself up and play the coulda, woulda, should have game after the fact.
Exactly. That's the most important, right? That's the most important part, is the not beating yourself up, or, you've suffered enough. You don't need to make it harder
Hmm.
by beating yourself up. And in fact, I do think like me and one other, we were like, we didn't care. Obviously, we were moving around as we wanted to. And most people were, making efforts. And I was telling them, the one, maybe you were just, wiggling a bit or doing a bit, but maybe that was a bigger act of courage than me. Because for me, it took nothing actually. For me, it was no big deal. And that
Yeah.
was actually for her,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. So it's a
I truly
spectrum.
think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So the illustration that I loved, and then
Yeah. Tell me. I love them
I when
all.
I
I
saw the
spent so much time
calculator
on that.
heads, I was like, oh my
Oh
God, the
yeah. Oh,
calculator
of
people.
course. Oh, the calculator head. Yes, that was fun to make with her. I was like, draw people, because we think we live in our head. Like it's almost like we have two people, right? We have the calculator, which is in the head. That's all the
Yes.
thinking, comparing each other with others and calculating all kinds of things. And then there's our body, which, like I say, we're often disconnected from, which is our heart, our
Yes.
guts, our, gravity,
Hmm.
and what's our feelings. And we kind of just cut ourselves off. I don't know if I invented the word, but it came to me. It's called decorpitated.
Yes,
I
I read
looked
that.
up
I was
in
like, ooh,
Google, but
that's a
it's not
word.
even there. Yeah, no, it like doesn't really exist in Google, or maybe it's been used like 5 times or something minimal, but we're really cut off from the body. That's why
Hmm.
people who do meditation, yoga, qigong, all the other ones, you're starting to just feel yourself,
Hmm.
just feel your body. Um, that's what happens after so many years of this is how we've been operating, but who
Yeah.
knows? Let's see where it goes in the next century.
Yes, yes, I love it. So, Sandy, that was amazing. And the biggest takeaway is feel the feels. Like it's not going to kill you, it's not going to hurt you, it's only going to make things better for you in the long run. So, feel them. You have permission. Just do it. It's needed. It will help not only you, but those around you. And then they'll feel inspired to do it too. And it will just be this beautiful experience. And life will be so much richer and more vibrant and just like all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Thank you so much, Kim, for
you're-
having me. I really, really appreciate like being able to speak to you or speak
yeah.
to the people that listen to your podcast and respect your show and everything. So thank you so
Oh,
much for
thank you.
having me.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a pleasure. So, ladies, if you found this episode helpful, which it was, please feel free to share it with a friend because the more the merrier. And if you would be so kind to leave a review, it's greatly appreciated. I take the time to read all the reviews to ensure that this podcast continues to be a place of support and guidance and really a one-stop shop thing for all things womanhood, whether you're a mom or not, because let's face it, us ladies, we have to stick together. So, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.